In this mini lecture, I'm going to give you 10 tips to be successful and effective speaking. Now you might be wondering to yourself, why did she not tell us this closer to the beginning of the semester? Well, the reason why is because you needed to get some of that lesson content in place so that you understood some of the terms that I was talking about. So let's get started. Follow these tips and you will be well on your way to being a successful, effective speaker. Now, each one of these tips is critical and they are not offered in any particular order, but the more tips that you try to follow, the more successful you are likely to be with your speeches. So let's look at tip number 1. Practice, practice, practice. I know you probably don't like to hear that, but the more you practice, the more likely you will be successful when you actually deliver your speech. Now, I'm not saying you have to go and practice 30 times, but at least a few times through is going to make a big difference. So how do you do that? Well, after you create your preparation outline, you want to read through it at a rate that you think you will use when you are actually speaking and delivering the speech. Time yourself. If it's too long, you're going to need to take some stuff out. If it's too short, you're going to need to add more information. Now, you could ask someone to listen to you read through your speech to see if what you are saying makes sense to them. Remember, your message is always going to be adapted to your audience. Sometimes information makes sense to us, but it might not make sense to someone who doesn't know quite as much about the topic that we know. If they are confused, make some changes. Now read through the preparation outline a few more times to make sure that you are familiar with everything that's in there. Then you're going to want to create a keyword delivery outline and practice the speech a few times using just your delivery outline. You could certainly recruit someone to listen to you, but if you want, you can just talk to yourself in your room. Make sure you time yourself when you're doing this so that, again, you're sure that you're within the time limit for the speech assignment. Speaking of time, we know that time matters. There is no better way to alienate your audience than to speak for too long, and you do not want to alienate your audience. Use the steps that I suggested for practicing your speech to get a rough idea of your approximate speech time. Now you want to try to resist the urge to talk more about any point than you have planned to. Don't ramble and stick to the outline. When you're delivering your speech, if you're in class, you can take your phone to the podium, or if you're at home recording a speech, set your phone to the stopwatch feature and monitor your time. If you find during your speech that you are getting too close to the end and you haven't come to the conclusion yet, you might need to eliminate some information, or you might need to talk less about it. Remember, I'm not sitting there with your outline making sure that you hit every point. Now, this is going to take some quick thinking. The more you practice, the less likely it will be that this will happen. Number 3, adapt to your audience. You may know a lot about your topic, but your audience may not. Be sure to think about what your audience might or might not know when considering how to organize your speech and what information to include. Think about your audience when considering the types of information you're going to give about any main point. Think about how your audience will perceive the message you are sending. This is particularly important with the persuasive speech. Do not alienate your audience through your words or your actions. Next, please review the speech grading rubric. I know it's long, it seems like I'm a little crazy having that be 4 pages, but the rubric is what I use to evaluate the speeches. It's extensive and it is detailed. Keep that rubric easily accessible while creating your speech. Review the rubric again when you're practicing your speech. Now, you could even get all crazy and ask someone at home to evaluate you practicing your speech using that rubric. Now, I know this is a long shot, but why not aim high? Now, this weird thing happens when students consult the rubric while creating their speeches. They tend to earn more points on their speeches. Imagine that. Now, keeping on this topic of rubrics, you'll also find one for the outline. Review that outline grading rubric. When I'm grading an outline, I simply look for the presence or absence of the outline item, such as the attention getter, transitions, signal to your conclusion. Label these criteria in your outline so that you remember to include them. You know, another really weird thing happens with outlines. When students have all the pieces, they tend to score higher on the outline and they tend to score higher on the speech, since the outline and the speech grading rubrics are related. Isn't that odd? Do not read your outline. You should never use your preparation outline as your delivery outline. Take that preparation outline and put it into a keyword delivery outline. Remember, you've read through that prep outline many times. You are very familiar with what you are going to be talking about. Take that prep outline, put it into either a keyword delivery outline on a couple sheets of paper, or you might like using note cards, and you can put those on note cards. If you do use note cards, I'm going to recommend that you number them in the order that they go so that when you drop them off on the floor, you'll be able to quickly find your place again. Now, one exception is going to be sources. You need to use oral citations in the informative and the persuasive speech. I recommend that you write the source into your delivery outline or your note card the way that you hope to say it in your speech. This way you can easily consult that source, and it's okay to go ahead and read that right from your outline or your card. Don't write your speech in paragraph form. If you do use paragraph form, you want to put that into, again, a delivery outline before you deliver your speech. If you bring something up with a lot of writing, you are going to read it. You want to practice with the delivery outline so that you get used to mostly looking at the audience. But then, of course, consult that outline as you move through the speech. You're not expected to memorize these speeches. Remember, they are delivered extemporaneously. You will be preparing them ahead of time and then delivering the speech from an outline or from note cards. And you want to try to make eye contact throughout the room. Or if you're sitting at home and you are recording in front of your webcam, you're going to want to try to make some eye contact with your webcam. I'm going to give you a little hint for those of you recording at home. When you have your outline on your screen, we can tell that your eyes are going back and forth reading that outline. Okay, next big tip. Come to class or view the content in D2L, and that's intended for the virtual and blended students. There is a method to my madness. I make every effort to give you every tool that you need to be successful. If you don't come to class or view the lesson content and the examples in D2L, you are setting yourself up to fail. If you don't understand something, please ask questions. You can post it to a discussion thread, you can send me an email, you can ask your classmates. I am always available to meet with anyone. If you live a distance away, if you send me your phone number and a good time to call you, I will give you a call and we can have a conversation. Use your classmates. They are going to be fantastic resources. Usually what you get out of any class, not just this class, any class, depends very much on what you are willing to put into it. Now, critically listen to speeches. For students taking this course face-to-face and for the blended students, you will listen to over 100 speeches during the semester. You will learn about what works and what doesn't work. For virtual students, you're going to be required to watch about 20 speeches, but you can certainly watch more, and I certainly recommend that you watch more than the required amount. Take this opportunity. We learn by doing, but we also learn by watching. When we critically listen to speeches, we learn what works and we learn what does not work. We can implement then these insights into our own speaking situations. I cannot emphasize this enough. Transitions are powerful. Have you ever driven through an unknown area without a map? You're just driving aimlessly, trying to reach your destination. Perhaps you eventually pull over and pull up your Google Maps app. Or maybe you're old-fashioned and you stop to ask for directions. Or maybe you keep driving and hope that you stumble upon your desired location. I don't think many of us like this feeling. As the speaker, you must be the Google Map app and lead us through your speech. Very clear transitions with internal reviews and previews can make the difference between an enlightened audience and a confused audience. My last tip is to preview, explain, and summarize. In any speech, In the introduction, you're going to tell them what you're going to be telling them. Then in the body, you're going to tell them. And finally, in the conclusion, you're going to tell them again what you just told them. We process auditory information differently than we process written information. With a speech, you don't have an opportunity to hit a rewind button. You don't have an opportunity to reread something you don't understand. As the speaker, you have one shot to get it right. Previewing and summarize does not insult the intelligence of your audience. It reinforces your message. Preview your main points in the introduction. In the body, make your main points clear. And those transitions really do help with this, those transitions between your main points. And then in the conclusion, you're going to summarize again those main points. Now, maybe you're going to add a little more elaboration than just stating the main points, but you're going to nonetheless summarize again. Don't leave the audience to infer these things. So that's it. If you follow these 10 tips, I promise that you will be a successful, effective speaker.